The world was dark, but her voice was like a beacon pulling me from despair. I'd lost my sight in a car accident 6 months ago, and with it, my sense of self. Then she came, unannounced, like a storm breaking over a parched desert. Her name was Lena, or so she said. She arrived at my Brooklyn apartment one rainy afternoon, her knock soft but insistent. "I'm here to help," she'd said, her voice warm, like honey over gravel. I didn't know her, but I was too broken to care. My family was distant, my friends scattered, and the world felt like a void I couldn't navigate. So, I let her in. Lena was a stranger, yet she moved through my life with a quiet certainty, as if she'd always known me. She was in her late 20s, she told me, with a laugh that carried a faint southern lilt, though she never said where she was from. Her hands were gentle, guiding mine to the edges of tables, the handles of mugs, the soft fabric of my clothes. She read to me poetry, novels, even the back of cereal boxes, her voice painting colors I could no longer see. She cooked meals that smelled of rosemary and comfort, and when I cried, she'd hold me, her arms a safe harbor. "Tell me about the sky," I'd whisper, sitting on my balcony. The cities hum a distant pulse. "It's endless today, Claire," she'd say. "Blue like the ocean, with clouds like cotton candy, stretching forever." Her words built worlds, and I clung to them. I was 28, a graphic designer before the accident stole my vision, my career, my confidence. But Lena gave me something to hold on to. She gave me her. Our days fell into a rhythm. Mornings were for coffee and quiet talks, her laughter filling the gaps in my silence. Afternoons, she'd guide me through the apartment, teaching me to trust my other senses. "Feel the texture of the wall," she'd say, her fingers brushing mine as she pressed my hand to the cool plaster. Evenings were for stories, hers, mine, or ones we made up together. I'd never felt so seen, even in my blindness. But there was something elusive about her. She never spoke of her past, deflecting questions with a joke or a quick change of subject. "What's the point of looking back?" she'd say, her voice light but edged with something I couldn't place. I didn't push. I was too grateful, too dependent, too in love. Yes, love crept in slowly, then all at once. I'd never been with a woman before, never even considered it. But Lena wasn't just a woman, she was my world. The way her breath hitched when I touched her arm, the way she'd linger when tucking a blanket around might was more than care. It was something deeper, something unspoken but electric. One night, as rain tapped the windows, I reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. "Claire," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You don't know what you're doing." "I know enough," I said, my heart pounding. I couldn't see her face, but I felt her warmth, her hesitation, her want. She leaned in, and her lips brushed mine, soft and tentative, like a question. I answered with everything I had. That kiss changed everything. It was a promise, confession, a tether to a future I dared to imagine. We didn't talk about it after, but we didn't need to. She stayed closer, her touches lingering, her voice softer. I thought we had time. Then the doctor called. A surgery, experimental but promising, could restore my sight. Lena was quiet when I told her, her usual warmth replaced by something distant. "That's incredible, Claire," she said, but her voice was hollow. I didn't understand why. The surgery was scheduled for a month later. Lena stayed by my side, but something shifted. She was still kind, still present, But there were moments when I'd reach for her, and she'd be just out of reach. I told myself it was my imagination, my fear of change. I was wrong. The night before the surgery, we sat on the couch, her head resting against my shoulder. "What happens when you can see again?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'll see you," I said, smiling. "And I'll love you even more." She didn't reply. She just held me tighter, like she was memorizing me. The surgery was a success. Light flooded my world, colors and shapes overwhelming after months of darkness. I blinked through tears, the hospital room sharp and vivid. My parents were there, their faces older than I remembered. Friends visited, their smiles bright. But Lena wasn't there. I called her name, my voice hoarse. The nurse frowned. "Who's Lena?" she asked. My parents exchanged glances, confused. "You've been alone, Claire," my mother said gently. "There's been no one here." Panic clawed at me. I insisted they were wrong. Lena had been with me every day, her voice, her touch, her love. How could they not know? I demanded my phone, called the number she'd given me. Disconnected. I described her to everyone, her laugh, her accent, her kindness. No one had seen her. Not my neighbors. Not the delivery guy. Not even the landlord who'd been in and out of my apartment. When I got home, the apartment felt wrong. The books she'd read to me were there, but untouched. The meals she'd cooked, nowhere in my memory could I find evidence of them. Her scent, her presence, was gone. It was as if she'd never existed. But I knew she was real. She had to be. I'd felt her, loved her. And now, with my sight back, I was determined to find her, to understand why she'd vanished, to know if the woman who'd saved me was ever truly mine. I started with the basics. I searched my apartment for any trace of hair on note, forgotten item, anything. Nothing. My phone had no text, no calls, no proof of her existence. But I remembered every detail. The way her hair smelled of lavender. The way her laugh caught like a spark. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining her. I went to the library, scouring public records, social media, anything that might point to Alina in her late 20s with a southern accent. I found nothing. Days turned into weeks, and doubt crept in. Had I conjured her from my loneliness? Was she a delusion born of trauma? But then I'd remember her kiss, the weight of her hand in mine, and I'd know she was real. One evening, I sat on my balcony, the city sprawling before me, its lights a painful reminder of what I'd gained and lost. I closed my eyes, trying to summon her voice. "Tell me about the sky," I whispered, my voice breaking. And then I heard Ida faint hum, like a song she used to sing. My eyes snapped open. Across the street, a woman stood under a street lamp, her silhouette achingly familiar. Blonde hair, slim frame, the same quiet grace. My heart stopped. "Lena," I called, my voice trembling. She turned, her face half lit, and for a moment, our eyes met. Then she was gone, vanishing into the crowd. I ran after her, my vision blurring with tears. But she was nowhere. Just a ghost in the city. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my desk, scribbling everything I remembered about her, every word, every touch, every moment. I was going to find her. I had to. Because if Lena wasn't real, then neither was the love that had saved me. And I refused to believe that. The search for Lena consumed me. My apartment, once a sanctuary, became a war room paper strewn across the table, notes pinned to the walls, a laptop glowing with dead-end searches. I was a woman possessed, chasing a shadow who'd held my heart in her hands. I started with the hospital. Maybe Lena had been a volunteer, a nurse, someone who'd slipped through the cracks. I met with the head of patient services, a kind but harried woman named Dear Ellis. No one named Lena matches your description, she said, scanning her records. We don't have volunteers living with patients. Her tone was gentle, but it carried a pity I hated. She thought I was delusional. Next, I went to my neighbors. Mrs. Carter, the elderly woman next door, had seen me come and go for months. Always alone. Dear, she said, her eyes soft with concern. You'd talk to yourself sometimes, but no one else was there. My stomach twisted. I thanked her and left, her words gnawing at me. Was I losing my mind? But I couldn't let go. I remembered Lena's voice, low, warm, with that faint drawl. I remembered her stories, the way she described the world with a poet's touch. I started visiting cafes and bookstores, places we'd talked about, hoping for a clue. I'd sit for hours, watching faces, listening for her laugh. Nothing. One afternoon, I found myself at a small bookstore in Williamsburg, the kind Lena would have loved. The shelves were crammed with used books, the air thick with the scent of old paper. I ran my fingers along the spines, half expecting to feel her presence. That's when I saw Eat Book of Poetry, the same one she'd read to me. Emily Dickinson. I opened it, my hands shaking, and found a handwritten note tucked inside. For the one who sees with her heart. No signature, but it was her handwriting. I know it anywhere. The bookstore clerk, a lanky guy in his 20s, noticed my reaction. Find something special? He asked. Do you know who donated this? I asked, holding up the book. He shrugged. We get tons of donations. No names. Usually. I bought the book and left, clutching it like a lifeline. It was proof. Small, fragile, but real. Back home, I dove deeper. I posted on local forums, describing Lena without giving too much away. Looking for a woman, late 20s, blonde, southern accent, possibly named Lena. The responses were useless trolls, creeps, or well-meaning people with no leads. But one message caught my eye. From an anonymous user, check the women's shelter on 5th. She might have passed through. The shelter was a low brick building, tucked between a deli and a laundromat. The director, a stern woman named Maria, listened to my story with a guarded expression. We don't give out client information, she said. But I can tell you no one named Lena has been here recently. I pressed, describing her laugh, her mannerisms, anything that might spark recognition. Maria's face softened. You sound like you loved her. I did, I said, my voice breaking. I do. She hesitated, then handed me a flyer for a community art event. Sometimes people who don't want to be found show up in places like this. Try it. The event was in a park. A chaotic mix of music, food stalls, and local artists. I wandered through the crowd, the poetry book in my bag, my eyes scanning for her. The air was thick with summer heat. Kids laughing, couples holding hands. I felt like an outsider, searching for a ghost. Then I saw here or thought I did. A woman with blonde hair, her back to me, stood at a booth selling handmade jewelry. My heart raced. Called out, Lena. She turned, but it wasn't her. Just a stranger with a kind smile. I apologized, my face burning, and kept moving. The day wore on, and despair settled in. I sat on a bench, the poetry book in my lap, and flipped to the note again. For the one who sees with her heart. It felt like a message, a clue meant for me. I closed my eyes, trying to summon her voice, her touch. That's when I heard Ida soft hum, the same song from the night on the balcony. I stood, my pulse racing, and followed the sound. It led me to a small stage where a woman was singing, her voice low and haunting. She wasn't Lena, but the song was hers. I approached her after, my hands trembling. "Where did you learn that song?" I asked. She smiled, surprised. "A friend taught me. She used to come to open mics here. Blonde, kind of quiet, southern accent." My breath caught. "Lena." "I don't know her name," she said. "She stopped coming a few months ago. Said she was helping someone who needed her." I thanked her, my mind reeling. Lena had been here, in this city, in my world. She wasn't a figment of my imagination. But why had she left? Why had no one else seen her? I went home, the poetry book clutched to my chest, and added the singer's words to my notes. I was getting closer. Could feel it. That night, I dreamed of Lena. She was standing in my apartment, her face blurred, her voice clear. "You don't need to see me to know me," she said. I woke with tears on my cheeks, her words echoing. I didn't understand, but I knew one thing: I wasn't giving up. The search became my life. Every lead, no matter how small, was a spark I chased through the labyrinth of New York. The poetry book, the singer's words, the handwritten note, they were pieces of a puzzle I was desperate to solve. Lena was out there, and I would find her. I started with the open mic venues the singer mentioned. I visited dive bars and coffee shops, places with sticky floors and dim lights, where dreamers poured their hearts into microphones. I showed Lena's description to bartenders, performers, anyone who'd listen. Most shook their heads, but a few nodded vaguely, saying they might have seen someone like her. Quiet, blonde, kept to herself. One barista said. She'd sit in the back, sketching sometimes. Sketching. That was new. Lena had never mentioned drawing, but it felt like her another layer of the mystery. I began collecting these fragments, piecing together a shadow of her life. She'd been a wanderer, seemed, moving through the city's underbelly, leaving whispers but no footprints. I went to art supply stores, hoping to find someone who'd sold her sketchbooks or pencils. One clerk, an older man with kind eyes, remembered a woman matching her description. She bought charcoal pencils, he said. Said she was drawing someone she loved. My heart ached. Was that someone me? I bought a sketchbook and charcoal, as if holding them might bring me closer to her. Back home, I tried to draw, mimicking what I imagined she'd do. My lines were clumsy, but it felt like a connection, however faint. Weeks passed, and the trail grew cold. I was burning out, my savings dwindling, my freelance work neglected. My parents called, urging me to move on. You're chasing a ghost, Claire, my mother said. I hung up, angry, but her words lingered. What if she was right? Then came a breakthrough. I was at a community center, another lead from the shelter's flyer, when I saw a bulletin board covered in flyers and sketches. One caught my eye, a charcoal drawing of a woman's face. Her eyes closed, her expression serene. It was me. The curve of my jaw, the tilt of my lips, I knew it instantly. There was no signature, but a note in the corner read, "For Claire, who sees." I tore the sketch from the board, my hands shaking. The community center's manager, a woman named Tara, saw me. "You okay?" she asked. "Who left this?" I demanded, holding up the drawing. She frowned, thinking. "Some woman dropped it off a while back. Didn't leave a name. Said it was for an art display but never came back." I described Lena, my voice urgent. Tara nodded slowly. "Sounds familiar. She was here a few times, helping with the art classes. Never said much, but the kids loved her." Kids. Another piece of Lena I hadn't known. I begged Tara for more, but she had little else. She stopped coming around spring, she said. That was when she'd been with me. I took the sketch home, pinning it above my desk. It was proof. Undeniable. Lena had drawn me, captured me in a way that felt more real than any mirror. But why had she left it here? In a place I might never find? Was she hiding? Or was she leaving me clues? I started visiting the community center daily, hoping she'd return. I joined the art classes, sitting among kids who laughed and smeared paint on their hands. They talked about Miss L, the woman who taught them to draw from their hearts. She said art is how you hold on to what matters. One girl told me, her eyes bright. I smiled, my throat tight. That was Lena. One evening, as I helped clean up after a class, I found another clue. A kid had left a sketchpad behind, and inside was a note in Lena's handwriting. "Keep drawing. Sammy. You see the world." It wasn't much, but it was hers. I asked the kids about Sammy, and they pointed me to a shy boy who'd stopped coming weeks ago. His mother, they said, worked at a diner nearby. The diner was a greasy spoon, all chrome and neon, the kind of place that felt frozen in time. I found Sammy's mother, a tired woman named Linda, wiping down counters. I showed her the sketchpad, explained my search. Her face softened. "That sounds like Lena," she said. She was good to Sammy, taught him to draw when he was struggling. She was here a lot last year, but then she just stopped. Did she say where she was going? I asked, desperate. Linda shook her head. She was private. But she left something for Sammy, a little drawing of him smiling. Said it was for someone who'd need it someday. I begged to see it. Linda hesitated, then pulled a small frame from behind the counter. It was Sammy, his grin wide, but in the background was a faint outline of another figure. Me. My heart stopped. Lena had been weaving me into her world, leaving pieces of me everywhere. But why? I left the diner, the sketchpad and drawing tucked into my bag. I was closer, but the questions were louder. Why had she vanished? Why had she hidden herself from everyone but me? And why, when I'd needed her most, had she been there, only to disappear when I could see? That night, I sat with her drawings, tracing the lines she'd made. They were more than art, they were her heart, her truth. I didn't know if I'd ever find her, but I knew I'd never stop trying. Because Lena wasn't just the woman who'd cared for me. She was the woman who'd made me whole. The drawings were my map now, each line a thread pulling me closer to Lena. The sketch of me, the one of Sammy, the note in the poetry book, they were her fingerprints, scattered across the city. I wasn't just searching for her. I was searching for the truth of who she was and why she'd left me. I went back to the diner, hoping Linda might remember more. She didn't, but she gave me Sammy's address. "He's a good kid," she said. If Lena meant something to him, He might know something. I thanked her, my heart pounding with a mix of hope and dread. Every lead felt like it could be the one that broke me. Sammy lived in a cramped apartment in Queens, the kind of place where the walls seemed to hold 1,000 stories. His mother let me in, her eyes wary but kind. Sammy, a lanky 12-year-old with a mop of dark hair, sat at a kitchen table, sketching. I showed him the drawing Lena had made of him. His face lit up. "That's from Miss L," he said, his voice soft. "She said I was good at seeing things other people miss." I smiled, my chest tight. "She said something like that to me too. Do you know where she went?" Sammy shook his head. "She stopped coming to art class. Said she had to help someone who needed her more." His eyes flicked to me, curious. "Was that you?" "I think so," I said, my voice barely steady. I asked if he had anything else from her on note. Another drawing. Anything. He hesitated, then pulled a small notebook from his backpack. Inside were sketches, mostly his, but a few were Lena's. One showed a park bench under a tree, a woman sitting alone, her face obscured. In the corner, in Lena's handwriting, was a single word: home. I asked Sammy where the bench was. He shrugged. She drew it a lot. Said it was her favorite place to think. I thanked him, promising to return the notebook, and left with a new spark of hope. A bench. A park, it was something. New York has countless parks, but I started with the ones closest to the community center. I wandered through Prospect Park, Central Park, smaller green spaces tucked between buildings. Days blurred into each other, my sneakers wearing thin, my eyes scanning every bench for a sign of her. I carried her drawings, showing them to joggers, dog walkers, anyone who might have seen her. Most shook their heads, but one older man, feeding pigeons in Brooklyn Bridge Park, paused. "Seen someone like that," he said, squinting at the sketch. "Blonde, quiet, used to sit on that bench over there." He pointed to a weathered bench under an oak tree, its branches heavy with summer leaves. "She'd draw for hours, always alone." I ran to the bench, my heart racing. It matched the drawing perfectly, the curve of the backrest, the way the tree's shadow fell across it. I sat, running my hands over the wood, hoping for some trace of her. There was no no initials, no hidden notes, just a bench. But it was hers. I started coming back every day, sitting for hours, watching the world go by. I sketched, too, trying to see the world the way she did. My drawings were rough, but they felt like a conversation with her. I talked to her in my head, asking why she'd left, why she'd hidden herself. The silence was deafening. One evening, as the sun dipped low, casting golden light across the park, I saw her again, or thought I did. A woman with blonde hair, her back to me, stood near the water's edge. My breath caught. I called her name, but the wind swallowed my voice. She turned, her face catching the light, and for a moment, I was sure it was Lena. Then she walked away, disappearing into the crowd. I chased after her, my heart pounding, but she was gone. Again. I collapsed onto the bench, tears streaming down my face. Was I chasing a ghost? A memory? Or was she real, slipping through my fingers every time I got close? That night, I went through her drawings again, searching for something I'd missed. In the sketch of the bench, I noticed something a faint outline of a building in the background. It was subtle, almost hidden, but it looked familiar. I grabbed my laptop, pulling up photos of Brooklyn's skyline. There it was, a distinctive brownstone with arched windows, near the park. I went to the brownstone the next day. It was a shelter for women, smaller than the one I'd visited before, with a faded sign that read Hope Haven. The woman at the front desk, a volunteer named Sarah, listened to my story. Her eyes widened when I described Lena. "She was here," Sarah said. "Not long. Maybe a few months last year. She helped with art therapy, but she left suddenly. Said she had to take care of someone." My heart raced. Did she say where she was going? Anything about her past? Sarah shook her head. She was private. But she left a box of supplies, paints, brushes, a few sketches. You can look if you want. I followed her to a storage room, my hands trembling as she handed me a small cardboard box. Inside were Lena's things: charcoal pencils, a worn sketch pad, a scarf that smelled faintly of lavender. I opened the sketch pad, and there I was again, my face rendered in soft lines, my eyes closed, a faint smile on my lips. Beneath it, she'd written, "Claire, my light." I broke down, clutching the sketch pad. Sarah touched my shoulder, her voice gentle. "She must have loved you," she said. I nodded, unable to speak. Lena had been here. She'd been real. But every answer led to more questions. Why had she left? Why had she hidden from the world? And why, if she'd loved me, had she disappeared when I needed her most? I took the box home, vowing to keep searching. Lena was out there, and I would find her, even if it broke my heart. The box from Hope Haven was my new obsession. I spread its contents across my kitchen table: pencils worn to stubs, a sketchpad filled with Lena's delicate lines, and that scarf, its lavender scent fading but still hers. Each item was a piece of her, but they weren't enough. I needed answers. I started with the sketchpad. Page after page showed glimpses of her world: trees, benches, faces of strangers, and me, over and over. One sketch stopped me cold. A woman, older, maybe in her 50s, with tired eyes and a gentle smile. Beneath it, Lena had written, "Mama, forgive me." My breath caught. Was this her mother? A clue to her past. I went back to Sarah at Hope Haven, showing her the sketch. Her face softened. "That looks like someone Lena talked about once," she said. She didn't say much, just that she'd lost someone important. I thought she meant a friend, but maybe it was family. I asked if Lena had ever mentioned where she was from. Sarah shook her head. She was careful, like she was running from something. But she did say she loved the coast somewhere south. Maybe Georgia or the Carolinas. The South. It fit her accent, her warmth. I started searching online, focusing on coastal towns in Georgia and the Carolinas. Called shelters, art centers, even small-town libraries, describing Lena and the woman in the sketch. Most calls led nowhere, but one librarian in Savannah paused. "Sounds like someone I knew years ago," she said. Not Lena, but a woman who ran an art program. She had a daughter who left town suddenly. Never heard from her again. My heart raced. "Do you have a name?" "Margaret Hale," she said. The daughter's name was Eleanor, I think. Eleanor. Not Lena, but close. I asked for more, but the librarian had little else. Margaret had passed away years ago, and Eleanor had vanished after. I thanked her, my mind spinning. Was Lena Eleanor? Was she hiding from her past? I kept digging, using the name Eleanor Hale. Social media was a dead end, no profiles. No traces. But a public records search turned up an old address in Savannah, tied to Margaret Hale. It was a long shot, but I booked a flight. I had to know. Savannah was humid and heavy with history. Its streets lined with moss-draped oaks. The address led to a small house. Its paint peeling. Its windows dark. A neighbor, an older man watering his lawn, saw me lingering. "You looking for someone?" he asked. I described Lena Aliner, hoping for a spark of recognition. He nodded slowly. "Sounds like Ellie Hale. Lived here with her mom years back. Quiet girl. Loved to draw. Left after her mom died. Some said she got into trouble, but I never believed it." "Trouble?" I asked, my stomach tightening. He shrugged. "Rumors. Folks said she ran off after a fight. Maybe something illegal. Never saw her again." I thanked him, my mind racing. Trouble. Running. It explained why Lena was so guarded, why she'd vanished. But it didn't explain why she'd chosen me, why she'd stayed when I was blind, only to leave when I could see. I spent the day in Savannah, visiting places Eleanor might have loved: art galleries, parks, a small cafe her neighbor mentioned. At the cafe, I showed the sketch of Margaret to the owner, a woman with a warm smile. "That's Margaret Hale," she said, her eyes sad. "She was a regular here. Her daughter, Ellie, used to come too. Sweet girl, but troubled. Left town after Margaret passed." "Did she say where she went?" I asked, desperate. The owner shook her head. "She didn't talk much. But she left a drawing once. Said it was for her mom's memory." She pointed to a framed sketch on the walla tree, its branches heavy with blossoms. A bench beneath it. It was the same bench from Lena's sketchpad. I left the cafe, the weight of her past settling over me. Eleanor Hale. Not Lena. A woman running from something: grief, guilt, maybe worse. But she'd found me, cared for me, loved me. Why? Back in New York, I couldn't let go. I went back to the bench in Brooklyn Bridge Park, the one she'd drawn. It was my ritual now, sitting there at dusk, sketching, waiting, hoping. One evening, a woman approached a street artist selling her work. She saw my sketchpad, the drawings I'd copied from Lena's. "You're good," she said. "Reminds me of someone I knew. She used to sell her art here." My heart stopped. Blonde, Southern accent, late 20s. She nodded. "Yeah." Didn't talk much, but her drawings were magic. She stopped coming around spring. I showed her the sketch of me. Her eyes widened. That's her style. She was always drawing someone. Said it was her way of holding on. Holding on to what? I asked, my voice shaking. The artist shrugged. Didn't say. But she seemed sad. Like she was carrying something heavy. I thanked her, my mind reeling. Lena Eleanor was out there, leaving pieces of herself for me to find. But why? Was she testing me? Protecting me? Or was she saying goodbye? That night, I sat with her scarf, the lavender scent barely there. I closed my eyes, picturing her face, her laugh, her touch. Why did you leave me? I whispered. The silence was unbearable, but I wouldn't stop. I'd follow her trail to the end, no matter where it led. The trail was fading, but I clung to it like a lifeline. Lena Eleanor had left a constellation of clues, each one a star pointing to her. The scarf, the sketches, the bench, they were her. even if no one else could see her. I was running out of leads, but I wasn't ready to let her go. I went back to Savannah, chasing the ghost of Eleanor Hale. The neighbor's words trouble. Running haunted me. I needed to know what she'd been fleeing from. I started at the local library, digging through old newspapers for anything on Margaret or Eleanor Hale. An obituary confirmed Margaret's death 5 years ago, from cancer. Eleanor was mentioned as her only daughter. Estranged. No details. Just that single, heavy word. I visited the cemetery where Margaret was buried. Her grave was simple. A small headstone under a magnolia tree. I knelt, tracing the letters of her name, wondering what had driven Lena away. Had she fought with her mother? Was it guilt that kept her running? I left a charcoal pencil on the grave, a quiet offering to the woman who'd raised the one I loved. Back in New York, I kept searching. I posted online again, this time using Eleanor's name. Most responses were dead ends, but one stood out, a message from a woman named Rachel, claiming she'd known an Eleanor Hale in a women's shelter in Atlanta. She was kind but guarded. Rachel wrote, left suddenly, said she was going to New York to help someone. My heart raced. It was her. I called Rachel, who sounded hesitant but willing to talk. Eleanor was running from something, she said. She never said what, but she was scared. Kept a sketch pad with her, always drawing a woman's face. Said it was someone she'd hurt but still loved. I swallowed hard. Did she say a name? No, Rachel said. But she was torn up about it. Said she didn't deserve to be happy until she made things right. I thanked her, my mind spinning. Had Lena come to me to make amends? But for what? I hadn't known her before the accident. Or had I? Doubt crept in, but I pushed it away. I knew her love. It was real. I went back to the bench in Brooklyn Bridge Park, my constant now. I sat there every evening, sketching, watching, waiting. One night, a storm rolled in, the air thick with electricity. I stayed, letting the rain soak me, as if it could wash away the questions. That's when I saw her again. She was across the park, under the same oak tree, her blonde hair glowing in the rain. I stood, my heart pounding, and called her name. Lena. Eleanor. She froze, her shoulders tensing, then turned. Our eyes met, and for a moment, time stopped. It was her face, her grace, her everything. I ran toward her, the rain blurring my vision. Please, I shouted. Don't go. But she turned and slipped into the shadows, vanishing into the storm. I collapsed to my knees, sobbing, the rain mixing with my tears. She was real. She was here. But why wouldn't she stay? The next day, I went to Hope Haven, desperate for answers. Sarah was there, sorting art supplies. I told her about the park, about Eleanor. Her face softened. I didn't want to say before, she said, but Eleanor left something for you. My breath caught. She handed me a sealed envelope, my name written in Lena's handwriting. Inside was a letter and a small sketch, a heart, cracked but glowing, with the words, I'm sorry, Claire. The letter was short. Her words raw. Claire, you were my light when I was lost. I wanted to be yours, but I don't deserve you. I've hurt too many people, and I can't hurt you too. You're whole now. Live. Love. Don't look for me. Eleanor. I read it again and again, my hands shaking. She was running. Not from me, but from herself. From guilt. From a past she wouldn't share. But I couldn't let her go. Not like this. I went back to the park, the letter in my pocket, and sat on the bench. I didn't sketch. I didn't cry. I just waited, the weight of her words settling over me. Hours passed, the city humming around me, but I stayed. And then, as the sun dipped low, I saw her. She was standing by the water, her back to me, her hair catching the light. I approached slowly, my heart in my throat. "Eleanor," I said softly. She turned, her eyes wide, filled with fear and something else, love. "Claire," she whispered. "You shouldn't be here." "I have to be," I said, stepping closer. "I love you." She shook her head, tears falling. "You don't know me. What I've done." "Then tell me," I said, my voice breaking. "Let me in." She looked at me, her walls crumbling, and for the first time, I saw her not Lena, not Eleanor, but the woman who'd saved me. And I knew, no matter what she'd done, I'd never stop loving her. Eleanor stood before me, rain-soaked and trembling, her eyes a storm of guilt and longing. I wanted to reach for her, to pull her close, but I held back, giving her space to speak. The park was quiet, the city's hum fading into the background, as if the world knew this moment was ours. "I don't deserve you, Claire," she said, her voice raw. "I never did." "Then why did you stay?" I asked, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. "Why did you care for me when I was blind?" She looked away, her hands twisting together. "Because I owed you. Because I'd hurt you before I even knew you." I frowned, confused. We didn't know each other before the accident. She shook her head, tears mixing with the rain. "We did. You just don't remember." My heart stopped. I searched her face, looking for answers, but all I saw was pain. "Tell me," I said. "Please." She took a shaky breath, her story spilling out like a dam breaking. Her real name was Eleanor Hale, born in Savannah, raised by a mother who loved her but couldn't save her from herself. As a teenager, Eleanor fell into a bad crowd, drugs, petty crime, a life she couldn't escape. 5 years ago, she'd been driving, high and reckless, when she caused a crash. She fled the scene, leaving behind a wrecked car and a woman injured. I stood frozen, the pieces falling into place. The accident that took my sight. The guilt that drove her to find me. "You didn't know it was me," I said, my voice trembling. "Not at first." She nodded, her eyes on the ground. "I read about you in the paper, a graphic designer. Blinded in a hit and run. I was sober by then, trying to make amends. I found you, Claire. I wanted to help, to fix what I'd broken. But then, you fell in love." I finished, my voice soft. Her eyes met mine, raw and unguarded. "I didn't mean to. I was supposed to help you. Not this." She gestured between us, her hands shaking. "When you got the call about the surgery, I knew I couldn't stay. If you saw me, if you ever found out, you'd hate me." I stepped closer, my heart pounding. "I don't hate you, Eleanor. I love you." She flinched, like the words were a blow. "You shouldn't. I'm a coward. I ran from my mom, from you, from everything." I reached for her hand, holding it tightly. "You came back. You cared for me when I had nothing. You gave me hope, love, a reason to keep going. That's not a coward." She sobbed, her walls crumbling. I don't know how to be enough for you. You already are, I said, pulling her close. She resisted for a moment, then melted into me, her arms wrapping around me like they had all those months ago. We stood there, rain falling, the world blurring around us. For the first time, I saw her not just the woman who'd cared for me, but the woman who'd been running from her own heart. We went back to my apartment, the place where it all began. Over coffee, she told me everything: her mother's death, her guilt, her years of trying to atone. She'd found me through a news article, tracked me down, and stayed because she couldn't bear to leave me alone. But when my sight returned, her fear of being exposed had overwhelmed her. I thought you'd see me and know, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought you'd see the truth and hate me. I took her hand, tracing the lines of her palm. I see you now. And I still love you. She looked at me, her eyes searching mine. How can you forgive me? Because you forgave yourself enough to help me, I said. That's enough. It wasn't easy. The truth of her past, the accident, lingered like a shadow. But we faced it together. Eleanor turned herself in, confessing to the hit and run. The police were lenient her sobriety, her efforts to make amends, and my testimony softened the consequences. She was given community service, a chance to keep rebuilding. We rebuilt, too. Slowly, carefully, we learned each other again. She moved back into my apartment, this time as herself, no secrets, no masks. We'd sit on the balcony, her sketching, me watching the sky she'd once described. Tell me about the sky, I'd say, smiling. It's yours, she'd reply, her hand in mine. All of it. Months later, we started an art program at Hope Haven, teaching kids like Sammy to draw from their hearts. Eleanor's sketches filled the walls, each one a piece of her redemption. And mine. Because in finding her, I'd found myself not the woman I was before the accident, but someone stronger, someone who loved fiercely, flaws and all. One evening, as we sat on our bench in the park, the city glowing around us, I turned to her. Was it really you? I asked, half teasing, half serious. The woman who cared for me. She smiled, her eyes bright. It was always me, Claire. It always will be. And I believed her. Because love, like sight, isn't just about what you see. It's about what you choose to hold on to, even when the world goes dark.